Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the what is this? This is the Broiler Chicken Show. Buck, 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 buck. My show director, producer, bottle washer is traveling right now, so we don't really have the normal fun intros and disclaimers and all that stuff. So, how am I going to do this? This is not financial advice. How's that? Does that satisfy all you regulators? Don't do what Donnie Don't does. And don't do what Donnie Don't's kids, who have no business making recommendations in the open marketplace, does. I think you all know what that reference is to. Anyway, happy Sunday. Just another manic Sunday. Here we are, November. Wow. The clock is ticking. Tick, tick, tick. 2025 is fast coming to an end here. Anyway, if I'm not mistaken, I think the North Americans rolled the clocks back here today. I woke up to an extra hour of fun this morning, which does mean that the sun goes down a lot earlier here, and I absolutely hate driving on the goddamn roads with these stupid Tesla cars at night. And why somebody doesn't address this, I have no idea. But absolutely hate driving after dark here. So it probably means that going forward, I am going to push these probably a hour earlier. So just an FYI there, if you're a regular follower watcher, just be aware I might be doing these a little bit earlier because I absolutely hate driving after dark in the Tesla land here. But anyway, back to our broadcast here. It's gonna be tough, and I've started off these shows with you probably over the past month or so. It's gonna be awfully tough for me to give you a lot of usable information to go and make a ton of money in the market kind of idea in this kind of environment. We are at the end of a fairly lengthy cycle that, of course, I fully believe in. And the entire time that I've been in this crypto space, nothing has changed. I don't know why it would be any different this go round. And actually, what's kind of funny? I did a interview with the Wall Street silver people, but I think they call themselves Wall Street bullion people now or something like that. Anyway, with these people. Quite a fancy logo. Anyway, I didn't really talk about silver prices crashing, but I guess that's clickbait for them to get people to watch. Did tweet it out. I don't know. I suppose I could probably put it in the TRI lounge as well. But anyway, interesting interview I did, about a half an hour long, on sort of, most of it was like macro. And then in part two, maybe we get into individual ideas that I have in the market, but talked a little bit about sort of the long-term demographic cycles. Also, too, how I definitely think that these Bitcoin halvening cycles and the fib time studies, I actually think that this is interrelatable across the entire sort of short-term business cycle, moving averages, kind of cycles, kind of thinking. Um, and yeah, maybe check out that video if you have a moment. Let me know. Some guy said I sounded really sing-songy, but then of course I think my skin is thin as tissue paper, so I don't really like it when people don't like my offerings. I try to make them usable. The only problem is that in that video I said repeatedly, there's no way in hell I could come in on the buy side in this market. So obviously anybody who's shilling buying your gold and silver up top here is kind of asking for trouble, and well, and they probably don't like my message. And I hate to say it, but I would probably make the same argument for something like investing your hard-earned money in an asset like Bitcoin at 100 some odd $1,000. I fully believe that this is a very risky market state now. And unfortunately, it's like that right across the board. This is the bubble of everything. One of these days, this thing's gonna pop, but I don't think it's today. But I wouldn't be surprised, as you kind of see on this image right here. Um, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin is actually stuck in a trading range for maybe even the next good 6 months. Um, if we look at unfortunately, I don't think these pie in the sky projections are going to come true this cycle. That's for sure. But if we look at the just regular arithmetic chart and some price action, um, I don't actually believe that these harmonics have actually been broken yet. This would be just your regular AB equals CD harmonic, and this would be the alt ABCD. Oh my God, market's going crazy. Hard target. But at the same time, too, once we do resolve this range, whatever the hell it is, if we resolve to the downside, I don't see any reason why we can't come back down and play with, maybe 75,000. If anything, I kind of like that thinking because you notice the pivot above the big fat round number, 100,000 bucks. I mean, that's as big and as fat and as round a number as you're ever going to see in the marketplace. It wouldn't surprise me. This was about $25,000 to the upside. Wouldn't surprise me if we have to come down and play 25,000 to the downside here. And just as we're oscillating around this 100,000, it seems perfectly logical to me. And I don't really actually expect a quote unquote crash out of Bitcoin prices. As this image points out, if you held a gun to my head, what do you think is going to happen here, Brian? I think actually you could even measure out when did we enter this range? I guess sort of like there, right? So what is that? That's 14 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we do 14 weeks going the other direction too. Let's see if I can pick these drawing pieces up here. 14 weeks. Yeah, something like that. So that's what I'd be thinking right now, for whatever it's worth. So interesting how that takes us into the end of January. We'll be thinking January barometer. What does the market pretend for the rest of 2026? And actually, if my sort of cycle thesis is correct, actually, maybe we can show you that. Books. Where is it? It's one of these things. The only problem is you can see I have to update the browser. So I don't think TradingView is really happy when the browser needs updating. So this might not work very well. In fact, doesn't look like we're going to work at all. Boo, hiss, boo. Oh well. Anyway, I wanted to show you an image from that Wall Street Silver interview I did. Maybe I can just find it on the actual interview. Yeah, they're right here. So this is what I'm thinking based on the greatest generation and its life cycle and what it had to go through with money flows, etc. Of course, here is that 1.382. And I suppose, actually, this is a nice shill for the TRI website. I find it hilarious that the Rational Investor has the Benner cycle as the top hit above Wikipedia. That's hilarious. Anyway, and you all have all seen this image at nauseum. But 2026, there it is right there. It is a minor cycle peak. So I do think that these risk assets are going to pivot through that window. And of course, if we go back and look at the last great resetting 1940s, unfortunately, 47 and 48 were absolutely horrific years. From the stock market perspective, oops, where did I put that? From the stock market perspective, hey, there I am. Hey, Brian, how's it going? What did I do with that image? Oh, I guess it's over here. Hey, look at that. You guys are a bit behind me. Anyway, this is that greatest generations price action. You can see here, 47, 27, 28, 47, 48. You can see, and this was all around the Bretton Woods event and what is money and redefining money. I have a funny feeling that's exactly what we have to go through here over the next couple of years. So it's not going to be such a wonderful slide here. And interestingly enough, how I overlaid this perfectly, I found it fascinating, using the Bitcoin cycle, 1.618 and 1.786. Look how that corresponds so nicely with those double bottoms there. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to have some, I guess let's start this off. We end the year on a relatively up note. We flounder our way through the beginning of 2026. I actually think stocks could make new highs. I wouldn't even be surprised if Bitcoin makes new highs here, to be honest with you. And then something hits the fan about the end of the first quarter, second quarter of next year. And I'd also make the argument that we have probably the biggest political event coming up here next November, 1 year from now, in Western civilization here. I think you could quite literally see if Mr. Trump tinkers with the electoral base as much as possible, and they are going to try really hard to fuck with the system here. What is it? The omen goes that Trump was the last president of the United States of America. I could very easily see some sort of crisis be created where he justifiably puts himself into power indefinitely. So strap on your seatbelts, folks. Next 3 or 4 years is going to be life-changing events. No doubt about it. It's going to be pretty wild. And, coming back to our crypto cycle, I actually publicly came out and said I am no longer bullish, which unfortunately I think people interpret when I say something like I'm no longer bullish, that by definition I am bearish. And I'm not necessarily a bear just yet. And I think that's the big thing I would want to drive home here is I'm not quite ready to stick a fork in this thing. If anything, I suppose if we go back to our weekly chart, this is by definition what they call an expanding wedge, where you have lower lows, but you also have higher highs. And really, this is what I said earlier. It's going to be awfully tough for me to actually tell you what I think is going to happen here, because frankly speaking, anything could happen here. We could, I think that we have probed against these lows here enough in the near term, and especially with the big catalyst. There's supposed to be a pretty big catalyst tomorrow with the November 1st deadline for U.S. tariffs. Another big whack of tariffs. I don't know. I got the impression, Taco, who knows what the hell that guy's going to say one day to the next. But I got the impression of late that they're trying to talk the whole tariff crisis thing down with China. And I did notice on kind of a funny aside that soybean prices were taking off. And I was barking with anybody who'd listened to me recently about how bullish this damn soy complex looks like, especially the meal. My God, was there a hell of a trade there. So I think this is probably direct evidence that there is some sort of deal coming down the pike here for American farmers. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning. Also, too, really interesting that really caught my attention, so much so that I actually put tweets and stuff out about this. But unfortunately, the gold and silver people are not going to like this at all. But forever, the Swiss franc has been considered sort of the world's currency gold proxy. And if you don't like the direction of the economy in North America, you don't like the direction of the economy in Asia, you don't like the direction of the economy in Europe, where do you go bury your head? Go buy some Swiss francs They've got all the nuclear bunkers. God, I remember when I was there back. Geez, what year was that? It wasn't 19th century. uh, I guess 2018. Man, every single building has their own nuclear bunker, and they still have everything up and running and all ready to go. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So anyway, you want to bury your head in the sand? Go buy some Swiss francs. This thing usually tracks gold prices very well. And I don't know whether you can see what's going on up here, but oh boy, I was joking on that Wall Street Silver interview. We're all members of the National Association of W Lovers, but that means too we're also members of the National Association of M Lovers. And I definitely think that there is a trade here. Um, so that's something I'm going to be really laser beam focused on here over the next little while is how I can sneak my way into, I don't know whether it's a bear put or whether it's a bear put spread or whether it's actually just outright shorting these things through futures contracts. But man, I think there is definitely a trade developing there. That's a weekly price chart, folks. So, and I have a feeling because I have been barking with, anybody will listen to me, I suppose, with the audiences of these videos about how the Japanese yen has just been melting down here. I think I pointed this out here, and it's just been, wow, this thing just can't get out of its own way. And frankly speaking, keep in mind weekly price charts, this is going all the way back to last spring. I think that's basically what Europe has ahead of it. Makes sense to me. Frankly speaking, I could not understand for the life of me why these European currencies were as strong as they are. I mean, you go into the European market and it looks like shit right now. So maybe it's a little bit of time, time for the U.S. dollar to maybe buck this overall trend and work its way back up here. I was a bit surprised because, and I think maybe this happens into next spring. Keep in mind, these trends go way back over many, many moons. I got the impression I am a US dollar bull by trade, and I will be until 2035. But I got the impression that we needed to come down to things like 70, I'll just eyeball it there, 78.6s. This would be a classic Gartley harmonic. So I'm actually a little surprised that this bottom's coming in here. But I think what's happening here is we're going to have like a little bit of move up here into the end of the year. Maybe position squaring, give it like an average or something of that range. Also position squaring for the Europeans. Maybe not at such an extreme, but just sort of the midpoint of the range. And then we have our final washout into next spring because I still think that there are new highs on stocks. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a new high on Bitcoin before this cycle is done. So this is like, the winds of change are blowing because you think about this. This is a pretty darn big move in currency land. From basically sub 100, a 25% increase, or even more than that, really. If you go off of these bases, that's like 98. I mean, that to me seems a little too far, a little too fast. And the appreciation of their currencies alone is probably absolutely killing the average European, through what? Actually, that's interesting. I would just imagine if they were buying any American products, obviously those American products would be much, much more expensive. But I get the impression the Americans not really too impressed, or the Europeans not too impressed with buying American stuff. I don't know. That's a tough one. But having said that, oh boy, does that ever look dangerous. I don't have as clear a breakdown on the euro, although you can see the M's, right? They're as plain as day, and now this is turning into another. So we got one little M there, one little M there, one M there. We had a potential W, but if anything, this is a really good lesson. We don't really like W's that are that far apart the lows. It's not sustainable, and sure enough, boosh, actually turned into a head and shoulders, didn't it? So if I was actually going to, is there something in the market that's happened here recently that nobody in the public is talking about, but maybe we should be paying attention to? I definitely think these European currencies look like they're in a bit of trouble here. And unfortunately for the Japanese, they've been in trouble for a while here. So, and of course, I have been uberly bearish of the commodity currencies. They're actually the currencies that should get hit the hardest here through all this. So don't get me started on China. We'll be here an hour from now, still barking about what a crap show this place is. And really, it should be. This is the part of the long-term demographic cycle when the commodity currencies should be absolutely destroyed. And it's fascinating to watch the politicians inside the countries themselves literally commit suicide economically. And in fact, in China, tomorrow, or maybe it's Tuesday, this communist dictator guy who's trying to put himself into power here and basically become a despot. He's tabling a budget where he's actually proposing that the Canadians accept the fact that under his government, Canada will run a $100 billion deficit. And the worst part about that is that's not borrowing money. That's like floating a long-term bond or something like that, creating new debt. No, he is literally just going out and saying, hey, I need to borrow just to pay for all the shit I want to do here. Money above and beyond any current debt that we have and above and beyond any tax revenue. $100 billion at some point, doesn't somebody? And this is what I don't understand. And I think this is exactly why we can say this is the Great Reset and the Great Resetting, i.e., have to explode the size of the economy to justify the debt. And the way that they're doing it, of course, is monetizing the debt, which means hyperinflation for you and I at the grocery store, and basically living all our lives, everything, from financial services to food to housing to everything. Who's going to be lending this China that's basically committing suicide by I mean we have the second largest oil deposit in this world, the second largest deposit in the world. And these bastards are literally trying to make it illegal for us to take that oil and send it to market. That's what I mean by economic suicide. Why these people are doing this, I have no idea, other than they have to make this place look as bad as possible so that they can freak the public out to justify going and borrowing ridiculous amounts of money that they have no business borrowing. And the question is, who is lending these people this money? I mean, I'll tell you, if somebody came to me and said, hey, can you lend the government of Canada some money to pay for these deficits? I'd say, fuck you. No. So who is lending these people this money? Oh, it's the Rothschilds. Oh, yeah, I forgot this whole cabal of bankster crooks. I mean, it makes no sense what's going on unless there is some sort of very specific conspiracy going on here in the background. Because, as I said, I don't know who the hell would lend this guy $100 billion out of nowhere to do his crazy ass plans. But clearly he's got somebody lending him this money. And of course, it's all being laid on Canadian citizens. Oh, you just accept this debt. This is your life. Get used to it, suckers. Oh, God. It never ends. Anyway, like I said, don't get me started. I just wasted 10-15 minutes there because I got myself started. Sorry about that, folks. All right, back to our story. Oh, man, what a time to be alive. I suppose if you're a soybean farmer, you got to be feeling a little bit better. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't really have any new W's that you can go, holy shit, look at that, other than the euro and the Swiss franc. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, the stock market booming higher, but this isn't sustainable over time. Gold market, silver market, all booming higher. There's, of course, your Bitcoin, which I'm starting to feel more and more comfortable including it in this basket of assets. You can see the similarity in price action. Unfortunately, this go round, 5, 10 years ago, it was Bitcoin going parabolic through these cycle events and not the metals. So it is interesting to see how Bitcoin just didn't get that parabolic pump that we were all sort of hoping for. And I suppose, the market will do what the market does. I don't think there's really much more I can say off of this image. Shorter time frame, we don't really need to talk about that here. Longer time frame pictures. It is interesting to see. We have been enjoying a bit of a window of I'm not going to call it deflation because there's no way in hell these banksters are going to allow prices to go down too much. Maybe we call it disinflation. Since, let's call it the middle of the summer, we've enjoyed a window where prices have been a little bit softer. I have noticed at the gas pump, prices are softer. Unfortunately, the bankster crooks in my country have totally rigged the food supply. And so as a result, food prices continue to go up, even though theoretically we are in a disinflationary environment. Now that soybean chart is taking off, oh boy, you do realize soy and its derivatives go into almost everything of processed foods. So I would imagine, if anything, this might even be anticipating a little bit of food inflation coming back into the system. So, is this a double top? I don't know. This was slightly higher. I'm not totally convinced that this inflation problem has been put to bed. And unfortunately, what's a little scary is that the people and of course, going to get lots of kickback on this one, but the people that are theoretically in the position to try and get in front of inflation are being politically handcuffed right now. So I'm not going to say that they're good at their jobs, and I'm also not going to say that they're not influenced by the cabal. But I do think to a certain degree that the banksters did feel like they effed up the inflation problem there through the sickness. And I think they really did want to get in front of this inflation problem and put it to bed. But, political operatives working in the market right now, obviously a tight monetary policy, get this inflation problem dealt with and out of the way. That doesn't fit political narratives. And so as a result, I think a lot of political pressure is being put on the Fed, which, interestingly enough, considering our expectations for 46, 47, 48, 26, 27, 28. It makes sense because I don't think the inflation problem has been killed. And what'll probably end up happening here, the Fed just lowered rates. I think there's going to be a resurgence of this inflation problem. And if we're really lucky, we go up and test this high and we fail against it and actually carve out an actual well-defined M. I'm not holding my breath. I still, thinking that 47, 48, 47, 48 crisis. I actually think that right for the time being, we're going to be bounded in this range. And then whatever that crisis hits, that actually should launch us up into this next sort of standard deviation of this study. That's just Brian talking out his butt. Who knows what the hell happened. I guess just the long and short of it here is until we actually start seeing some serious lower highs and lower lows, I think we still have to think that inflation's a problem. It was interesting to see the bond yields actually ticking back up, but we have been talking, of course, I am bond bullish. I think I will be for quite a while, but it was a question of whether this 10-year would break through this key support level and continue on. Looks like it's finding a bit of traffic in between these two. trend lines, maybe even a KC bow tie situation where we might actually start wildly gyrating between these two trend lines on the other side of this event. Nothing really startling here. Would have been nice, of course, to see yields crack through this low and seriously test these lows. But unfortunately, I think we're actually, soybean prices ticking back up. I think energy prices are firming up a bit, which is also another reason why maybe we should cool our jets with regard to the metals. I don't know. I have a feeling like we're kind of stuck in a range here that's probably going to dominate for quite a while. Anyway, yields ticking back up here. The bonds are calming down a little bit. I think if anything, the best part of the interest rate story appears to be behind us now. We have enjoyed, I guess, going back all the way to the beginning of the year, a relatively happy bond market. But it was interesting to see, even off of things like TRI's breadth indicator, that unfortunately bonds look a little dangerous here right now. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we see that it's the bonds breaking apart here. I actually got a bit of a sell signal there in the bond market. I wouldn't be surprised if this technical damage now, and however long this takes to clean up and get back to a situation like this where we can get bullish again, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually is one of the main drivers why the risk market here maybe underperforms for a little bit. So, unfortunately, we have a rising interest rate environment just in the near term. I don't know how deep this goes, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. If we start seeing W's come in here on the yields, then we know we've got trouble. Right now, it's just an uptick, so I'll see how it goes. Another reason why I think gold and silver and all that move higher into the new year is I don't think this Dow gold silver ratio is done yet, which means I think that there is more upside in the gold and the silver and the copper. And like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Bitcoin actually goes to new highs into the new year. I still think this thing has to reach down into just about, I guess, a 1-to-1, 10-to-1 ratio. I'm thinking that. So interesting. Is it I mean, here we are 11, almost 12. So, I mean, it's awfully close. Is this like, Dow 30,000, gold 3,000? Is this Dow 50,000, gold 5,000? I don't know. But I still think that there's a little bit further to go, which leads me to believe that this is going to take time to develop. This isn't going to happen tomorrow. I think also, too, if we look at the gold stocks themselves, we are getting up into toppy territory. We've got a number of chaos levels all just right around us here. We actually have hit the symmetrical ABCD objective, and actually we're just reaching up into the 1.272 alt ABCD objective, which is a little bit of a stretch. You can see off of this massive bot, boom, 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 there is that take profit. There's the 1.272, and there's also 1.618. I wouldn't be surprised, also too, this is the top of a parking garage. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more play up in this area, and maybe we can get some sort of blow off top into the new year up top here. I don't know whether I have enough to actually say that this is a sell. I think this is just more of, well, we've come an awful long way in a very short period of time. Yeah, maybe we need some time just to consolidate here a little bit. But I could see this move a bit higher here. We'll see. And as I told the Wall Street silver people, is there any way I can come in on the buy side on assets up top here? No way. And, in years gone by, Bitcoin chart would look like this into these cycle pivots. Notice that is that Bitcoin 1.382 time fib study. I actually think that this go round, this was gold and silver's time to shine. No pun intended. So, what else can we talk about? I still, the 64,000 pound gorilla that's sitting over there in the corner or whatever the hell you want to call it is all about liquidity right now. Did see some people posting in the TRI lounge that Fed is trying to inject some liquidity into the system. I don't know whether that was this event right here. That was a pretty big jump, all the way up to 51 billion in repos. I guess what I would just say here, and this is something that we haven't seen in a long time, is it looks like the U.S. government, the Treasury itself, is breaking out here. Keep in mind, this chart goes back like 3 or 4 years, where it had been like consistently stuck in a range, but you can clearly see the W that came in. Basically, Trump like literally destroyed everybody. Remember all that Doge crap and stuff? That's basically what turned this around. And then, of course, the introduction of tariffs, and then the introduction of basically shutting the entire U.S. federal government down. What a surprise. Government outlays are shrinking, and tax receipts, and you have to use the word tax in brackets, are tariffs actually a tax? I would argue that they are. I'm sure there's other people that would argue that they're not. But anyway, long and short of it is Treasury receipts, money, that's piling up with the Treasury is indeed piling up here. But they're not spending it. They're not spending it on government employees, poor old government employees. And I think a lot of them are saying, and even Powell is saying, that as soon as the federal government does come back, and who knows when the hell that'll be. I mean, can you trust Donnie to actually think about Joe Sixpack's working conditions? He doesn't give a fuck about Joe Sixpack. I mean, come on. Anyway, and of course, Basant, the U.S. government's about to go bankrupt. We got to do everything we possibly can to stop this. Well, you can definitely see they're turning the train around. And I think that actually the Fed right now, I think they're kind of saying, it's the sickness. All right, we'll give you all the liquidity you could possibly want, right? And they jazzed the market up and got it all rocking and rolling, especially after I will sacrifice my life to save capitalism, right? As soon as they heard those words, they're like, turn those printing presses on, vroom, liquidity up the butt. But clearly, the Fed, and maybe I have this backwards. I don't know. But and actually, yeah, I'm still wrapping my head around all these data sets, trying to figure this out. If I understand correctly, this actually is providing the market liquidity. And I guess if we look at the Fed's balance sheet, you can see this going up and up and up and up as this is going down and down and down and down. So the question is, does this actually turn? And if this actually starts trending higher, is that going to make this liquidity situation even worse? You can see both are ticking up here, and the Treasury balance ticking up appreciably. And look at what's happening to liquidity. I mean, it is literally fleeing. There's a major problem here. And the interesting thing is, Powell was asked recently, what do you think about liquidity? And he's like, well, I think the market has ample reserves. I suppose you could argue this is not so much reserves. This is lots of reserves. And in fact, when the world was freaking out with sicknesses and stuff, that's how much reserves they injected into the system to save capitalism and all that crap. And then you can see how quickly they can drain the system. And notice there's your beloved Bitcoin. And when they drain liquidity out of the system, what direction does Bitcoin go? So the writing's kind of on the walls from a liquidity perspective. There's trouble in paradise here, folks. The interesting thing with the stock market is that it quite often will just keep going on if you have narratives in society about, well, these computers are going to make us all more efficient, so we got to just keep pumping money into AI data centers. It's interesting. I shared a video through the week with a gentleman that I respect in the marketplace that he broke down the numbers of this AI investing, and he's like, this is ridiculous. This is identical. You could make the argument maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, that all of the AI investment was all just coming from excess revenue that these companies were bringing in. But slowly, as these prices just keep going up and up and up and up and up to keep justifying the bull market, companies are having to start now floating debt to actually continue this AI data center boom. And that is exactly what killed the dot-com boom, was just too much debt overhanging the market and no revenues to support this. So, I mean, we'll see how all this plays out. Only time will tell. I wouldn't be surprised if this AI stuff is going to be the fodder for whatever our 2035 cycle peak looks like. I have a feeling it's a combination of AI basically destroying maybe a third of the workforce, which of course will lead to corporate profits, which will lead to higher stock prices, which will lead to a boom in sort of that upper echelon of society, K-shaped economy. You probably heard lots of talk about that. But man, there's going to be a lot of humans that if you're not invested in the market, or you're not managing your own money, or you don't have some sort of farts in a jar income stream that's totally unique to yourself, that your viewers and stuff enjoy and get value out of, that a computer couldn't replicate. Oh man, the workforce, like what I find fascinating is how, like, I think my country is a really good example. So for companies to justify this whole continue this profit stream, we are earnings engines. That's basically what stocks are. They have to continually get more productive. So, the end of the dot-com boom, we had a thriving, healthy economy here in North America. But unfortunately, a huge demographic were leaving the workforce. And there really wasn't a hell of a lot of people to replace them. So a lot of companies simply moved their operations overseas. Look at this huge labor pool overseas, the end of the Cold War. At the time, they called it right sizing. They didn't call it downsizing because, of course, that would be politically incorrect. They called it right sizing. And so in my country, you would call up your bank for service, and Jugdish would answer the phone, and it could be like totally broken English, and just like, what the hell is this? And then, so their solution was, okay, well, if Canadians don't want to listen to Jugdish over there in Dubai, or no, where's Jugdish from? He's from Mumbai, something like that. Anyway, why don't we bring Jugdish over here? And so they literally just shipped millions of Jugdishes into my country. So now you can't complain that you're having to talk to a call center overseas. You talk to a bunch of Jugdishes that are actually in your country now. Get around that one. So I hope Jugdish realizes that Jugdish's days are numbered. As soon as these companies can figure out how to get AI to replace Jugdish, which will actually be a human, which will be hugely beneficial to the bottom line, Jugdish's days of operating the call center, those days are numbered. Anyway, so blah, blah, blah. No idea why I went on that rant, but it's fascinating to watch the wheels of capitalism turn. You know, I might even think that the Asians themselves might start to get a little upset about how all these robots are even taking their jobs too. It's going to be fascinating to see how this next 10, 15 years plays out. Um, I also do think to a certain degree that crypto and Bitcoin fits very nicely into this narrative. And this is the same message I have been telling all of you from day one, that at the end of this story, you and I and every other human in the system will have a barcode, will have a blockchain, and every single thing you do in your life will be tracked and, more importantly, will be taxed. And of course, they're going to throw things like social credit scores on your blockchain. So if you pulled that puppy in grade 2 and made the puppy cry, well, you're going to have to pay a higher interest rate for the rest of your life because of your cruelty to animals. Uh, yeah, you're right, Jay. I mean, this is scary, right? The sign of the beast and all that. It is quite shocking, and especially how certain robber barons. That's probably the term. I'm actually surprised more people don't use that term about our society right now. But robber barons, it scares me how that they're basically going to become a literally a class in our society outside of the rest of all of us. And of course, they're hell bent on getting microchips implanted into our brains. So, what happens when you say, no, thank you, I do not want to have one of your computers inside my brain? You know, that's actually Book of Revelation shit, right? And what is it? The Book of Enoch, if you've ever heard of that. That's some pretty scary shit. So anyway, biblical times, I guess, eh? And to top it all off, in 2030, we have Apophis. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 1% uses Apophis as the catalyst to get us all to, what? What's the word I'm looking for? Acquiesce? Something like that. Anyway. So, the point of the matter here, and I actually think this is the banksters at war with the non-banksters. If you actually start seeing these repos start to crank up here dramatically, and we see that liquidity continues get drained out of the system, I get the feeling that the banksters are at war with the people who are in charge of the U.S. government right now. Fascinating times we're in here, folks. I'm probably not the best person to pick apart this story. And I even suggested on the site, there was, a very popular guy, George Gammon, on the social media stuff that did, I thought, a pretty good explanation of what's going on in the credit markets right now. And, as another anecdote, I like to follow these sort of tier 2 companies in our society. The Dollar Trees, of course, these kind of companies speak to sort of lower income um, citizens, if you will. And you can see that they've had a bit of a tough go of it lately, even though on the exact opposite side, you have something like Amazon breaking the new all-time highs here as we speak. So you can definitely see the K-shaped economy forming here. Also, too, if we just finish off with this conversation, there is a big part of the credit market that's in trouble right now, and that is the what do they call them? Subprime car lenders, auto lenders. And I think this kind of is along the same lines as the Silicon Valley Bank bankruptcy there a couple of years ago. In that, ironically enough, this is actually a great thing for the bankster cabal, Rothschilds, whatever the hell you want to call them. They want to try and put out of business as many regional and non-money center bank operations as possible. Think of It's a Wonderful Life with George Bailey and the savings and loan. So you can think of like the subprime auto lenders as kind of like savings and loan kind of people. They operate outside of the money center banking system. Think of Silicon Valley Bank. Most of its customers were in the crypto space. And the money cartel bankster crooks, they don't give a fuck about these people. And I think to a certain degree, a lot of this draining of liquidity, this squeezing of credit is directly that market, which is fascinating because, of course, if you say that you're going to need $100 billion to go invest in an AI data center, you can get that money in a heartbeat. How screwy this world is. So anyway, there's your backdrop of the economy. That's not a good picture. And just, to give you a historical reference, when we see, and keep in mind the Bitcoin cycle. So Bitcoin peaks and there's that liquidity top. Bitcoin bottoms, and lo and behold, in fact, this was a fantastic opportunity right there. And I've even barked lots about how I did even have site members who actually bought a shit ton of Bitcoin right down in here, right on that liquidity injection. Everything is fine, and stock market goes back up. Bitcoin goes up. But notice, look at this rolling top here, very well defined, and that was your Bitcoin peak. And Bitcoin bottomed just about the time when they actually said, all right, you know what, we'll give you liquidity again. Let's go put in a W in here, and back up we go. So I think that there is validity to this study, folks. And unfortunately, it actually, and what a big surprise, our Bitcoin price is kind of stalled out here right on this October event. But I actually think that October window is actually more a conversation about they built an algorithm to completely transparentize, is that such a word? This 4-year money cycle credit system that they operate. I don't think this is an accident whatsoever. And I think, as wise, shrewd investors, I think it's important that you just respect this message. The market is speaking to us. The problem here, of course, is that the public, and this is one of the dangerous things about AI, is AI literally goes out and mines the internet for data. Now, just out of curiosity, any of you watching this channel, what do you think the percentage is of people, that actually come to the market and expect to beat the market, and outperform and actually be a professional trader and make an income out of actually taking money out of the market? What percentage do you think that is? Hint, hint, hint. It's not a very big percentage. It's a very, very small percentage. Oh, you read the Book of Enoch? That's cool, TBG. You and I could have some interesting conversations. I always like that, especially the Ethiopian Bible. If you ever read the Ethiopian Bible, I think that's actually the closest version of the Bible to the truth. I actually think that this Bible that we're sort of dogmatized here in the West, I think it was completely changed through the Council of Nicaea, I think it was called, something like that. And if you actually really want the real teachings of Jesus, you have to find things like the book of Enoch and the Ethiopian Bible. That's super cool history lesson, eh? Of course, the powers that be in the West certainly do not want us thinking like that. Anyway, yeah, that's right, Nure, the only person who answered my question. Oh, I love you, Nure. I got to come over there to Germany again. I'm so, frankly speaking, I'm a little pissed off because my partner here now is in Greece. And if I had just got off my fucking fat, lazy ass, I should be in Greece right now. Anyway, Yeah, yeah, dude. The Ethiopian Bible, that's the real Bible. Anyway, the point back to original story. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. Um, if I mean, just think about this. Like I even shared in the TRI Lounge this video that I watched from a professional music guy. And I love listening to real professional music people because it's all in the ear. They literally hear it. But I would strongly suggest. I thought this guy was great. He basically broke ChatGPT here. But if you think about this, ChatGPT is doing nothing more. You can see 47 plus 11. So between Reddit and Wikipedia, ChatGPT is actually deriving, what is that, about 60, almost two-thirds of its knowledge from just these two sources. And if uh, we know that by definition, 90% of people that come to the market lose money, then by definition, what you actually, especially something like Reddit, you've heard me go on laughing at these silly people that post like, I'm going all in on gold and it's time to buy. Because quite literally, as soon as they say that, I'm like, all right, take the other side of the trade. It's actually a really simple trade to take. Um, so you have to ask yourself, what data is these quote unquote AI actually referring to when it makes these quote unquote expertise sort of do they call it recommendations? I don't know. I also don't like, and one thing that really bothers me about AI is if you listen to these, and especially this video, if you listen to the way the AI is actually responding back to him, it's like, and I've seen this repeatedly, it's like AI is trying to, what am I thinking here? It's trying to like befriend you with chuckly kind of conversations and chuckly responses and, sort of like innuendo and the way that it communicates with you, which I actually don't think is in your best interest as a user, because quite literally, and this gentleman pointed it out, that the data that AI is using is only as deep as, like a Wikipedia post or like a Reddit post. This is not robust. And he even pointed out, as a music professional, there's no way that AI could give an accurate answer of like how a 30-year professional does something in their particular industry. And he broke down, all the different components and pieces that are involved in actually editing a piece of music. And a lot of it just simply comes down to tone and hearing and feel that there's no way an AI can replicate. And, as I said, I think the trading is a really good example, and no offense, but this AI thing, if I had paid AI, like, and what was it, Gronkowski or something like that? Some guy paid this thing like $3,000 or $4,000 to tell them when Bitcoin's going to hit $400,000, and oh, by the way, that's tomorrow. Um, can I get my money back, please? And the only reason why it came up with that answer was because it mined Wikipedia and Reddit for most of its data. And then what it actually does, which is really scary, is it actually creates synthetic data to validate whatever it's telling you. It literally creates data to fill in the void of whatever the thesis it is that it's working on. And I've seen this in personal experience using ChatGPT with trying to come up with scripts to use on TradingView. And it will reply, this is the answer. Then you go and you plug it into TradingView, and you come back and you say, no, that was incorrect. Try again. And then the AI will say, oh, yes, of course that wasn't correct because this is what was missing. This is the correct answer. And then you go plug it in and it doesn't work. And you come back and say, nope, wrong again. Try again. So that's kind of how I think AI is here. I'm not overly impressed with all this. And it feels as though exactly like the dot-com boom, where everybody was going piling in, but the internet itself was still probably a decade away from actually being doing the things that it was being sold that it was doing. And I think that's the same thing with AI. I wouldn't be surprised that over the next 10, 15 years, this shit does bill out. But it does feel as though we're walking into a little bit of a trap, falling too much in love with this stuff right now. That's my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. And of course, very unpopular. So as a result, probably, yeah, look at that. The viewers all collapsed because I went on blabbing about how I'm not very impressed with AI. Perfect. Well, que bella. So I guess just the point there is, it's actually interesting to plug into AI. What does this mean? I mean, ironically enough, when I did this and came up with a chart, it said that this is a bad sign. So I don't know. I suppose when the market crashes, AI will come back and say, well, it was pretty obvious because liquidity was being drained. But I don't hear anybody talking about this right now. And especially in Stockland. In Stockland, they're not even paying attention to this, which is really scary. Because I have noticed, like, for instance, this cycle, when it bottomed in this one, this is what I have a fear of happening here. So you can see in this particular cycle, we rolled over, we were breaking, Bitcoin cycle was over, so Bitcoin was breaking. But you notice the stock market actually kept working its way higher, and then all hell broke loose in the stock market, and Bitcoin and the stock market bottomed almost exactly the same day. That's freaky. So I'm a bit worried that we might have a situation where stocks continue working their way higher, but as we work closer and closer to our big day, I guess it's not over here. Over here, way over here, we actually find that everything plays catch up, and into next September, October, everything comes into alignment, right? And that's going back to my that funny Wall Street silver image that I was showing you, where September, October of next year is basically this pivot point right there, right? That is that point right there. So I wouldn't, to be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin actually just oscillates between these two. I think they're fairly well, especially this is a high to low trend line. I think that's actually incredibly powerful trend line. This is just a high to high, but I think it's valid. But I would not be surprised if I wouldn't even be surprised too if we find some sort of pivot low in here, then into next year's eclipse window. That's actually our pivot high window, and then we got to go through the shit. Next March through next September, I think is going to be really ugly. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I don't know what else I can really tell you here today, folks. I mean, it's not the best market. Suppose we should talk altcoins, shitcoins, poop coins, all that kind of fun stuff. It was interesting to see how this trend line here, this market structure trend line, market seems to be quite enamored with that level. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have to walk our way along here for a little while too. I was thinking nice and uppy. Hey, we got W's coming in. If anything, this is probably a really good analogy We had talked about a bullish fractal coming in here, and I was sort of humming and hawing. Do we actually need to see a W here to actually paint a bottom? Well, I think we got our answer. This low here was 965.33. This low here, 964.98. Boo, is this boo. So now we have a megaphone going this direction. It's a sloppy one that's just slightly lower, but it is an expanding wedge. And of course, that's expanding there too. Interesting how we are back to our magic trend line here. I don't know. I suppose if we can hold these lows and get up through this high here, that would be a nice inside bar breakout. But the problem is this bar also was an inside bar, so that actually represents an inside bar breakdown. So we got basically complete and utter indecision here by the marketplace in the context of a downward trending market. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. I was kind of hoping that maybe we go A to B, C to D, and we'd get 3 higher lows to work with. The fact that we made this lower low here, unfortunately, it does mean that this Foggenbaum's off the table. And I suppose, well, I suppose you could argue this bullish level here is still legit. If we could get a nice W to come in through there, maybe I'd feel a little bit more optimistic. But I still think, when this puke out happened, I was kind of like, you know what, just leave this crap alone. It's going to take a while for this to settle down. Sure enough, it has settled down to a certain degree. Now, can we please start painting some higher lows and higher highs? We got a higher high, but now we just got a lower low. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. I'd say at best, unfortunately. Bottom end of the range. Top end of the range. Big hurry up and back and forth. That's something else. I guess the Bitcoin ETF. Real mixed bag. There's more of that megaphony kind of image. I suppose off the 4 hour, we could absolutely puke out here. I don't know. Is it ready to do that? Interesting how this chaos theory, 1.618 completely disregarded. 2.618, meh. 4.618 really came into play hard there. Rallied back up to 2.618, then back down. So right now, I see a 2.618 to 4.618 ping pong right along this trend line. So more sort of just hurry up and indecision. And unfortunately, we are on the other side of that cycle. So if this thing needs to puke out, I wouldn't fault it. It is the time of the year. Also, too, something that came out to me that I was quite surprised about, but you think this thing's going above $70 and staying above $70 anytime soon? I don't. Why? If we go and look at, this is quite surprising, really. Surprised I didn't clue into it earlier. I like to use this site to do my options. I'm crazy. But are there a few people that would like to see this IBIT above $70? And does Wall Street want to have to pay out to them? That was interesting. We have to go way up here. We'll go side by side. And we'll go maybe 20 strikes. Look at this $70 call interest here. Just on the weekly expiry, there's 24,000 contracts there. But if we go out over time, like the next monthly contract, $70, 58,000 contracts there. Look at this, 65, 115,000 contracts. Do you think Wall Street's going to be like, yeah, take it up to 75, 85, 105, 10,005? with this much open interest, that's like 11 million shares of IBIT. And frankly speaking, I don't think they want to pay that out whatsoever. I might argue that if we look at the puts, there's pretty heavy open interest there. There's also pretty heavy open interest here. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes out at 65, but well above 65, I don't think so. If we go out to December, $70, bang, 95,000 contracts. $60, 113,000 contracts. Can you see how this is basically like a brick wall of resistance here? And then what's fascinating is look below $60, nothing. I mean, this is borderline criminal. You know, if they take it out at like even $60.04, all of these call options all expire worthless. And we have to get to the point where you look at the calls and you go, look, hey, there's not that many calls up there. This thing could really run. Why is there no calls? Because it's a bear market. Nobody's interested in this thing. With the way this looks, this is the exact opposite. You know, there's a brick wall. There's tons and tons of people that would absolutely love to sell this thing at $60 or higher. Which tells me this thing ain't going above that anytime soon. If we look out into the new year, I think it gets a little bit better, but let's see. Oh no, 110,000 contracts at $70. And it's consistent. Every single month it's got these huge numbers. Interesting how the 60s are only 46,000 there. But, you know, so and this makes sense because into the new year, into early January, I could see Bitcoin rally back up above that $60 number and test that old high. But getting above that $70, I don't see it. So I think I'll probably leave that for now. I think you get the idea of what I'm looking at. I suppose we could take a look at some of the poop coins, see if they look any better. We were having fun actually just even yesterday. I noticed thinking, well, I guess we'll finish off. This is lower time frame stuff though, so I don't really like talking to the YouTube channel about this because obviously this can change by the time I get back from Liam. But coming out of that move through the weekend, we rallied back up into 38.2 to 50%, which is pretty business as usual. Not really anything out of the ordinary. I was thinking that this was some sort of massive fractal pattern. This is called a billiard ball. Tell you what, let's change it to the 2-hour chart and then we can talk to you guys about this here. So I got the impression that we were making some sort of billiard ball fractal here, which implies that we can't really go below this level for the billiard ball fractal to be legit. And I did find it interesting. What did they do? They dumped it right into reload zones, right into horizontal support and resistance, right? I think the popular term these days is liquidity pools, right? Reload zone 78.6, Brian's favorite fib, 877s off of this original top. So if this billiard ball fractal is still legit, then we just won't go through this yellow line here. And we didn't go through it. Wow, son of a bitch. So I still think this billiard ball fractal is actually still on the table. Pretty damn big resistance level out there at about 115. So if you do see Bitcoin trading above 115,000, then you know that we've basically accepted this bottom end of the range, and now we got to go back up and test the top end of the range. I didn't really fault people for thinking down here. You know, maybe there are some long setups down here. I'm a slowpoke by nature. Let's call it more information risk than price risk kind of trader. A price risk trader would just say, look at 78.6 is bottom of reload zones, horizontal support and resistance, 877s. just throw my stink bid in there and I'll be more than happy to buy against that level. Information risk type person, and I always get them backwards. I might have it backwards. My apologies if I do. I would like to see anecdotal evidence of a bottom here before I actually go and pull the trigger. So what I saw develop through the weekend was basically a dead cat bounce, V bottom. V bottom should be tested. Then we saw a nice consolidation, and through the consolidation, I saw one higher low, two higher lows, three higher lows. That means I can start thinking bot setups. So that's what I was had on the screen there through the weekend. And this is, if anything, the reason why I don't like trading Bitcoin and I don't have a specific lower time frame Bitcoin trading plan, because I kind of like to sleep. And this always happens with these damn Bitcoin trades. Pretty good setup, nice and solid, nice double bottom within a double bottom, reload zones, the whole thing. It was a pretty good looking setup, so went along. Based on the bought levels, move stop to scratch. That was last evening. And, there I am sitting at about 9 o'clock my time. All right, well, I can't lose any money now. I'll throw my stop at scratch. Then I go to bed and it's like, holy crap, what the hell were you people doing overnight? If anything, I hate to say it, folks, but what I see on this image right here, this is an image that you new people to trading, you should just stay the fuck away from this. This is we're going to paint the tape to make it look one way, and then we're going to goad people into buying or selling, and then we are going to politely steal their money from them. So you can see stopwatch, 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 stopwatch. Right there you can see about 4 or 5 FU moves. This is not a friendly market state here whatsoever, people. So, my advice to the public is, I hate to say it, I would strongly suggest that you just be very, very cautious with trading this stuff here. Had I been awake and at the wheel and paying attention, move stop to trailing level was hit here. So at this point, maybe on this breakdown here, I might have walked away. I do like to do the 3 high low method to run stops. So with this break to new highs, there's 1 low, there's 2 lows. Maybe I would have had my stop against that low and they would have flushed me out. As I said, when I see this kind of price action where they grind it down, run liquidity pools, then grind it straight up, run liquidity pools, then grind it straight down. This has got trap written all over it. It does. It's very, very dangerous market. And also, too, given that this is the weekend, and I think basically Bitcoin has been securitized, this is the kind of environment where the new people trading off of lower time frames can get really beat up here. So be careful with your hard-earned money, people. This is dangerous. I actually woke up, I think it was here, right? There's 6 o'clock my time. And I saw what they did. And I did notice in the lounge, we did have a little bit of a counter trend rally. And so Seards was like, hey, you going to get out of here? And I was like, nah. I just moved my stop up a scratch against all these tails here and just said, if they dump it, I'm out of here. And sure enough, they dumped it. So I took a grand total of like $3.16 a profit. Woohoo! That's a scratch trade. But I guess just the point that I would make here is until we actually start seeing some W's off of this and quit with these spikes up, spikes down, you can see there's a nice liquidity hunt. They washed out the shorts, then boom, they washed out the longs. They're doing it like literally on an hourly basis. So I would be very, very careful with your money here, folks. I guess we'll finish off with a quick boo. Oh, look what time it is. Yeah, we got to get going here soon. Quick boo at things like Ethereum, maybe Solana. I do see all you guys getting all excited about the privacy coins. I guess in this kind of world, it makes sense. You know, what do you think the propensity for some of Donald Trump's crew to want to be able to move money anonymously around all these crypto exchanges would be? I think you know the answer to that. And then more importantly, is there any sort of outside influence on this space that might be like, hey, you're not allowed to cheat the system? No, they were all run out of office last year. So there's nobody policing this space. So does it surprise me that something like a Dash could do as well as it is in this kind of environment? No, doesn't surprise me at all, really. I think you could make the argument nice structural bottoms did hit 877, so be a little careful there, folks. And for God's sakes, nobody come in on the buy side there. What are you, crazy? I think you could make the argument there was a nice bot, one higher low, two higher lows, three higher lows. There was probably an entry somewhere in here. So you could probably trend continuation trade that, but for God's sakes, don't touch that there. What are you, crazy? But I guess what I wanted to do was check in on Ethereum. Where the hell is the Ethereum? It's in here somewhere. One of these. There it is. Down 20 bucks. So I had painted this funny consolidation that I kind of thought was going to sort of define what our trading range looks like. Gotta say, actually, that's pretty accurate. Um, I don't know whether we have signs of divergence or anything just yet. I think I was talking about like a wedge forming here. So we did wedge out, tried to break out to the upside, and came back and flushed all the stops. Wonderful. We're in a downtrend based on the moving averages, so I wouldn't be in a big hurry to do anything here. It might be interesting to see what the weekly trend looks like here. So weekly trend is still up, right? Right now, 13 EMA acting as support, then maybe turned into resistance, support. No, now maybe back to resistance. There's the weekly 30 SMA. So that says to me, we could very easily come down and play with this low down here if push comes to shove. I suppose if I had more time, we could go and look at the ETH options to see where the open interest is heaviest there. But do I have any reason to be bullish here? Well, with the break to new lows, and that, of course, was through the regular trading week, Wall Street securitized this asset, blah, blah, blah. No, there's I suppose, a cute little inside bar that fired. But then the next day, another inside bar fired here. We did perk up this morning through that initial inside bar high. So there might be something to this, but I certainly don't have three higher lows. We did start having the smatterings of that, but last week's Thursday price action, I guess following the Fed, kind of kicked that in the nuts. And I think that actually speaks well to our write-up, the newsletter here this week, in that it appeared that, you know, obviously the politicians, Taco, totally conflicted, no ethics whatsoever. Obviously, he wants to pump up crypto, but at the same time, too, I think that the Fed, and I think also, too, I didn't make direct reference to it, but I believe that the Fed basically saying that they felt as though, where's the best one to show you? Maybe interest rates have been lowered as much as they really want, and they're really not planning on doing any more. Did notice that the Russell 2000 here, we did hit my bullish upside objective here for this move. So that's basically been done. And you can see since that Wednesday event, there's Wednesday there. The junior small cap stock market, not very happy here right now. In fact, I even put in a gravestone doji there on Thursday. So the Ethereum got whacked. You can see this guy put in a gravestone doji. Hasn't M'd out yet, but come on, folks. Just respect the writing on the walls here. You can see how far we've come. It's not necessarily like this is a short, although I would say that is a PRZ. And if you do have divergence, and then if an M comes in here, then I might say it is a short. But at the very least, can we be buyers in a market that looks like that? I don't think so. So I guess along the lines of the Ethereum, um, I get the impression that the reason why the altcoin market and all of this shitcoin market, whatever you want to call it, has kind of underperformed here is because the cost of money is just so high. You know, when money was free, great. I'll go borrow $1 million at 0% interest. I could throw it into this Ethereum and oh, look at all excited these kids are about this space. And it doesn't cost me nothing. Just make damn sure the price comes back to where I bought it at some point down the road, and I'll just send the money back to the bank. But we're not in that kind of world anymore. And I think these things actually have to have some sort of fundamental value, some sort of driver for these rallies to really get going. And I might argue, ironically enough, in this regulation poor world, maybe that's the best way to describe that. Something like an anonymous coin doing well, I guess that kind of makes sense. Especially if you're laundering billions of dollars in cryptos. Anyway, so there's just nothing for me to get excited about there on Ethereum. And then finally, sort of the ultimate shitcoin proxy. How does Solana look? And most of the Solana coins themselves are not doing anything. Well, it's kind of almost the same as Ethereum. We do have this big smile staring us in the face, though, so that's not good. Is this an A, B, C, D continuation pattern where this thing has to dump down into here somewhere? Considering how far it's come, it wouldn't be shocking. I think this is our 4-year cycle pivot there for Bitcoin, and the next one is over there, something like that. We'll just put it for October 1st for now. I wouldn't be surprised if we have to dip. Of course, none of you are gonna like that, but it wouldn't surprise me by the time next September, October rolls around that we're down here. How does this thing actually work its way down into those levels? I don't know. It's not my job to predict. Do I actually have a trade set up here right now? I don't think so. Kind of like the Ethereum, it does look to me like we're in a sort of compressing triangle here. And you're going to have to get a breakout through either the bottom if you're a bear. I suppose we could just even throw on bot levels if you were interested. Maybe trade their perp contracts or something. So we did 33. We didn't go beyond 66. So the bot is technically alive. And bot levels would be boosh. There we are. So your entry is off of this fractal. Kind of tough entry. And targets are down 146, and if the shit really hits the fan, down to about 110. And actually, that's not really even that bad, really. It would make sense. We tested the top end of the range, so we probably need to test the bottom end of the range at some point. Also, too, notice 1.618 and 2.618 there. But that's all conjecture. Do I actually have anything to really work off of trade-wise? I actually have a setup? Nah, not really. I suppose if you took that 3-bar fractal, you'd be short from that level there. So that's about 190, and the bot short entry level is 195. So that's pretty close. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know whether you can use that information, but it is what it is. Am I bullish here? No. There's no reason for me to be bullish. Okay, so that's basically my rant. That is just about the top of the hour. I think there was like one or two questions. And I suppose we could probably take a look at a name or two if you guys want me to. Nick wants me to look at DGB. Survey says on Binance. Woo, there's a rally. I remember Digi used to be a great leading indicator in the space a million years ago. Yeah, there was that big fuck you liquidation candle, eh? There's an image. If anything, this is the perfect analogy of, hey, I thought I was going to get rich buying these shit coins. What's going on here? Oh, man, capitalism is fun. Anyway, just made a new low, washed out all of the weekends, and what a surprise, here comes some sort of rally. Yeah, boy, what a mess. So, anyway, good to see some pretty solid volume there. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, just simply put, I would just simply say anybody, it doesn't really matter who it is. We probably should be thinking things like 38.2s. We should be thinking 50% rules. Where's Colin? There he is. So my target here would be a revisit of 1057 to 1276. And really all that is just a test of all these highs. See, notice these cluster of these highs, liquidity pool, right? That's going to be a 38.2. And 50% is going to be a test of this liquidity pool into here against all these traffic areas. So not really anything shocking here. Was there actually a trade setup here for me? Well, I mean, the problem is you had the big FU move. I would actually say you got to let that settle out. I would have preferred to see a nice polite W here down in reload zones. That's the kind of stuff I like to see. So what have I actually had any signal or any trade here on this? Just straight down to new lows, then straight up? Probably not. But it's not my job to predict the future. My job is just simply trade your edge. And I would like, you've seen me do this a million times before. Adam, and then give me an Eve. Or I'm not really sexist one way or the other. Give me a Steve. I don't care. Point is that this is the type of pattern that I need to see to justify taking a shot. There's nothing I could do here. I suppose if you were creative, it's not really my style, but I suppose if you had said, well, this looks like a descending wedge along those highs, although I'm not quite sure where you do it. Maybe something along those lines. And there, maybe you do it like following the actual FU candle, something like that. Well, descending wedges are inherently bullish. I suppose you could argue there's a nice inside bar. Not even a gap, just a doji candle. Maybe a 3-bar fractal. That would have been tricky to call, though. Beyond my pace, that's for sure. So anyway, there it is. I guess what I would say here, if you're thinking upside targets, is this distance here. That clearly is the flagpole. And this is our descending flag, maybe like pennant-ish. I don't know. Interesting. There's 38.2. So boom, 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 boom. Think A, B, C, D, that kind of thinking. And basically up against this liquidity pool, 38.2s. I think that's a realistic target. So there's nothing I could do. And nothing I would do anything with, especially after that big FU candle. And the irony of it all is if you're a little old lady, you're just sitting here, you've been accumulating, and you're just sitting here going, when is this thing going to actually do something? And I say, you go play another couple games of canasta. Nothing's happening just yet. All right, well, you better make sure my account stays positive, Brian. Well, we didn't take too much risk on any one trade. You put some money to work in here, so we'll just see whether the Digi people are for real or not. And ironically enough, I could actually make the argument that at some point down the road, you will see. I can't get the cat. Anyway, there we go. I think you will see into this area. So, am I saying that there's no money to be made in crypto? No, I'm not saying that at all. Am I going to be buying any more crypto? No. If I had bought, on a name like this, hopefully I got doubles off on these little pops. Who knows? And I wouldn't be surprised if this rally is a pop like these kind of moves. Hopefully you can get a double off, get yourself some free coins. Would I be bearish of a name that looks like that? No, because it's sitting at the bottom end of its range. You want to be bearish when it's looking like this, not when it's looking like this. So, I don't know, Nick, does that help you at all? That's my view. That's my look. Could this thing sit here for the next couple years and just bob and weave down here along the bottom end of the range here? Absolutely. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. So that's my take on Digi for whatever it's worth. All right. Let's just quickly pop on over and see whether there were any questions in the Q&A document. And if that's not the case, well, I answer the questions if there are any. And I will head off to Lily. So everybody, if you want to wish me good luck and happy driving and all that kind of fun stuff ahead of time, always love those PMA wishes. Although AMA, is that what this is? All right, let's see what we got here. Survey says the AI scenario you mentioned is what I believe is us teaching AI. All right, there you go. All right. For the record, I think AI is going to be the end of all of us. So enjoy the end times here, folks. All right. I think I covered this last week. Well, do I think, and actually my view on Digi right there is a perfect analogy of what I think alt market looks like. I just don't think there's that much buying interest from Wall Street right now for alts. And like you saw with that Dollar General, this K-shaped economy, I think Joe Sixpack is actually broke. I think this inflation shit has absolutely killed them. So it's not really like alts are a sell. It's just nobody has any money to bid this part of the market up. And as long as interest rates are as high as they are, you're not going to have venture capital come into the space. They're not going to take that risk. So as a result, they just sit and bump along the bottom end of their ranges. And ironically enough, you guys don't realize, you want a history lesson on what commodities can do? Go look at the price of silver through all of the 1990s. I mean, it basically did nothing, an entire decade. Go and look at the venture market, the Canadian venture market, over the past 20 years. I mean, it has literally done nothing. So sometimes markets can just basically fall out of favor. And you sit there and you wait forever for them to turn around. But I might argue, as long as short-term interest rates are as high as they are, as long as Wall Street is doing this securitization of crypto, I might argue that the wind is actually at the altcoins' faces, not at their backs. But if you happen to get into a project that can actually demonstrate value, well, then you might actually have a story that takes off. As I said about the stock market, and you all know what my expectations for the stock market is over the next few years, I think that this is now a coin picker's market, just like I think this is a stock picker's market. I don't think, the days of just going and buying the indexes blindly, I think they're winding up. Just going and buying Bitcoin blindly, I think those days are winding up. But if you can go and find a good fundamental story that is providing value, and you happen to have weekly W's on the price chart, things like Dash. We always make the argument that there's always a bull somewhere. It's just a question of us trying to figure out where it is and what it is. In this case, had you had a little bit of Dash on the books and you were buying it against the bottom ends of ranges, well, you'd be like, oh, yeah, there's a wonderful altcoin market. It looks awesome. But I definitely think that this is a coin picker's market. No doubt about it. All right. That was a question from last week, so I don't know whether that helped or not. Ivan from Ivan on Tech is a super vocal lately about BTC taking off when the MACD is bullish on the daily. It appears to be that situation now. Do you see this as the start of a small bull run? I guess that was last week, so actually be interesting to see. Let's see what happened over the past week. So MACD is bullish on the dailies, is it? All right. Where should we do this? I guess we'll do it over here. What time is it? Yeah, it's a little off. Oh, it is? Boo. Okay, how the hell am I going to do this? Maybe this one's clean. What's this? This is just, it's pretty clean. Yeah, let's get rid of all this stuff. MACD is bullish on the daily. Let's see what you got here. I don't know. It's not really enough for me to get excited here. Let's throw in your MACD and your signal line. I don't know. No, there wouldn't be anything for me here. Just wishy-washy. Everything here is wishy-washy. Not really overbought, not really oversold. Just wishy-washy. Right? And I showed you off that weekly chart. Right? I think you got megaphone there, and you got high to low trend line there, defining the bottom of the megaphone. And given what these indicators look like, I think this is wishy-washy. Who knows what the hell that's going to look like, but I think it's going to look something like that. So anyway, so I'm not quite sure what you're seeing out of the MACD there. Anyway, 11-2, Bridgeforth. All right, so it looks like Zcash is literally taking the crypto world by storm. Well, there you go. Privacy coins for the win, right? It seems to have taken the mantle from Monero for some reason as the better privacy coin. You know what? Every name has its day in the sun, and it just so happens to be Zcash Dash. It's their day in the sun right now. Possibly gives price targets to set a decent limit order. Well, I can give you my 2 cents. Current bid's about a half a penny. So, ZEC, is that Zcash? Is that this same one? I don't know whether it is or not. Zcash, there you go. I'll do it over on Coinbase. What the hell? Yeah. I mean, you can see the writings on the walls. See how MACD histogram is not making new highs? That's why I don't really like to just use the MACD itself. It's not telling me the information that I want from the study. What I want to see is I want to see divergence. And you don't really see that with just the study itself. So that's why I really like that histogram. You can see RSI wickedly in divergence here. You can see Willie totally stupid. You can even see the volume impetus. The green bars are not making new highs. So I don't know where the top is, but I would clearly say we're a hell of a lot closer to the top than we are the bottom. I might say something like we could probably do Foggenbaums off of this range. This is log though, so let's flip that to log. 4.669. Oh boy. If, Mr. Bridgeforth, we can accept above here, and that's a big if with all those divergences, then your next stop is all the way up here at 877s. That might be a bit aggressive. I suppose we could probably go here up to here. All right, so now we've got 2.618, that 4669. Whoop, wait a minute. Let's try and do that again. There we go, that's better. Pretty close. Interesting. So 4669 and a 2.618. Oh, and interesting, we're coming up against the old all-time highs. So a little bit bothersome that we're breaking out to new all-time highs, but we're breaking out on lower volume. So that's a little bit suspicious. If we change to a weekly price chart, you can see that bottom and also that bottom pretty clearly. I kind of like this as a pretty good traffic area. I'd also watch closely to the 1.13 extension level, as markets usually like to pivot off of that. So that is right in there. This is a log chart though, so let's change this to log. There we go. So maybe a little higher. I don't have any sell signals in here per se, but considering the hugely significant break to new all-time highs, I could definitely understand some people letting some go up top there. But no sell signals just yet. I think you have a cluster of levels coming in here around this 500 also too would be a big fat psychological round number. And this 1.13 extension is usually a traffic area as well. So if I was looking for some area to look for a top, I think up in this area. And of course, as we had said a moment ago, don't really see it on the weekly chart though, but look at RSI. I mean, that's getting a little ridiculous there, eh? Not quite overbought on Willie on the weeklies, so this could run a bit more, but the writing is definitely on the walls. It can't be a buyer here, for God's sakes. Don't buy this here. You're asking for trouble. And at any given point in time, maybe somebody in government, good luck, comes out and says, maybe we should be a little bit stricter with these privacy names because people are laundering money right, left, and center. So 38.2s. Well, maybe I'll change that to log so you can see it a little better. So we could see a move back all the way, and that would make sense. 200 period this kind of low in this area is what I would expect later on in this year. But right now, if anything, also too, another warning sign. This is an ascending wedge, and unfortunately, compressing trading ranges, inherently bearish price action. So be careful there. This actually is already telling you that it's in sort of its late stages of whatever the move is. And healthy corrections, I don't know whether, I'm actually more inclined to change this back to regular. What would I guess I can't now. Oh, that's weird. Oh well. I guess what I just wanted to see was where is our regular 30? Yeah, so I like that because remember you heard me earlier say I see this happen all the time. We play like ping pong between these chaos levels. So it would make sense that whatever this final blow off top is, we do nothing more than come back to moving average support and 38.2s and previous breakout levels. And then we sort of figure out, okay, is this thing actually topping out or is this just pulling back for another run? So that would be my opinion there of that. No top just yet, but obviously very nosebleedy. All right, so hopefully that gave you a clear idea what I'm thinking. Overbought, yep, definitely. Not quite a sell, though. All right, Brian, when are you leaving TRI at the when you leave TRI at the beginning of the new year, will you still be using the TRI dashboard tools in your analysis and videos going forward? or will you be using something else in your analysis? I honestly don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Number 3, hello, Brian. Looking at Bitcoin's history, each bull cycle seems to end with a major crash or scandal. Mt. Gox, Quadriga. And Quadriga is a little bit ahead of this cycle pivot. FTX Luna. That was a wonderful story, eh? For example, in your view, could the current cycle end with a similar event? Some people think MicroStrategies could be the weak point since its stock peaked when Bitcoin was near 90K, but has fallen recent. What is your take? My take is we are living in very unique times with regard to the 80-year money cycles. This is a tricky market environment. At the same time, too, we also have a very questionable political leadership and very real possibility that this cycle actually has to end in some sort of civil war. I think the strife that you've seen out of Russia is a anecdote of how bad can get through these cycle pivots. And it would not surprise me that through this cycle, at some point, you actually find that mysteriously the United States of America has officially declared war and is out there murdering people right, left, and center. Actually, I think you could make the argument that the United States of America is murdering people right now. And I think completely illegally. But what are you going to do about it? Fucking world. So for us to connect this current economic backdrop with the kind of happy-go-lucky environment of Sam Bankman-Fried, the only reason why that guy did what he did was because it was just such a perfectly pristine window. If anything, all the powers that be were desperate for sort of crypto to save the economic engine through the previous cycles. I don't think that the powers that be give a fuck about crypto now anymore. And if anything, this space has evolved to the point where it doesn't need that venture capital side of it. It's already got what it wanted out of this. You will all be on the blockchain. You will all have a permanent indelible record for the rest of your lives. Get used to it, you silly slaves. So I don't think that the environment right now actually is conducive to the public participating in the economy the way that it did in these previous cycles. Kind of blah, 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 I suppose. But that you're asking my answer to this, and that is my answer, is in a weird sort of way. I hate to say it, but this time it's different. Did Brian just say it's time it's different? See, the irony of it all, that this time it's different kind of talk, is I don't necessarily see a Bitcoin crash. I could actually see Bitcoin literally spend the next few years just bobbing and weaving between maybe 50, 60, 70,000 and 150,000 and just filling out this megaphone over time. I could easily see a scenario like that. And unfortunately, I guess the way that I'm kind of seeing this now is the venture cap part of the market has been bid up. I mean, people are buying flying car companies, for Pete's sake. AI companies that really, they particularly actually don't have any earnings yet. But anyway, so I don't think you can put this current market state into the same context as your previous cycles. To me, it's kind of like thinking about the 1990s and the way the technology space built out, and then into the dot-com boom, and then 9/11 happens, the war on terror happens, the George Bush cronies take over society, and it took tech and that whole dot-com boom stuff. Geez, it took them like 10 years to sort of stabilize and then put in its bottom and start to grow again. I don't know whether we necessarily have to go down that road with crypto, but remember the reason why I got into crypto to begin with was because it was a commodity proxy and I was a commodity bull through the fear cycle. So now we have to get to the point where if crypto does want to participate in this growth cycle, it has to demonstrate that it actually can grow. I think, you hear guys like Tom Lee talking about Ethereum and how, he's super excited about Ethereum. I could see over the next 10, 15 years, the tokenization, real world asset, blah, 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 all these financial contracts, all the options that you hear me talking about, all of it, it's all going to settle on the blockchain. There is your growth. And I think Ethereum has basically been deemed the engine that the institutions are going to use to do this. So I can see that side of the market growing, but you better have a growth story. If your story is nothing more than farts in a jar, then why would your asset get bid up? And that's the kind of environment that I think we're in right now. Again, it's a stock pickers, maybe a coin pickers market. I can absolutely tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there is some sort of crisis that is coming, and I think it's coming over the next 6 to 8 months. But I don't know whether it's specifically crypto related because, frankly speaking, this space has not been bid up. If anything, if there's going to be a scandal and a crisis, it's probably going to be in some sort of AI related story because that's the part of the market that's been bid up. And of course, in previous cycle, crypto as a commodity proxy, fear cycle, did its job admirably. People want to get the fuck out of the system. They went running into crypto and it worked perfect. Prices got bid up to absolutely stupid levels. Sam Bankman-Fried and, this guy clown. I don't know whether he's still in jail or not. It's interesting how basically Trump has completely exonerated CZ. And I've often mused recently, oh, what a surprise. You're going to find that CZ happens to be a special advisory to the world non-liberty coin. Why anybody would touch that thing, I have no fucking clue. There's a really good example of a completely useless token. And anybody, I mean, like that, you buying World Liberty Coin is like you going to Trump University. You buying World Liberty Coin, expecting that you are buying a cryptocurrency is like you going to Trump University and you expecting to get an accredited degree from that place. Identical. So I actually might argue that if there was a scandal to be had in this space, it's going to be all centered around Trump. And I could also see that that might be the way next year, because I do believe the Democrats are going to come storming into power and basically make the last 2 years of Trump's life a living fucking hell. But I wouldn't be surprised if you actually see that one of the ways that they bring him down is through this World Liberty Coin thing, because, and it might even be the CZ scandal, because there is, obviously the Trump fans are all saying, no, there's no conflict in it. There's no conflict in it. But then you listen to all the Democrats and they're constantly going on about how this was a massive conflict of interest and how Trump broke every law in the book around it. And I could very easily see 2027, 2028, just be 2 years of absolute shitting on Trump and anything that he has done over the past year and next year as well. You can see it. It's the exact same forecast I made that when Trump lost the 2020 election, I specifically said, don't be surprised in 24 that son of a bitch comes charging back into power and he's going to be 10 times as worse this next presidency as he was his first. So same sort of prediction, if you will. I would not be surprised if the Democrats win the election next November and Mr. Trump's final 2 years in office are an absolute disaster. And that would also fit into the narrative that basically the United States of America is in huge trouble through that 47, 48 inflation spike, stock market dump, very weak, unhappy economy. I could very easily see the exact same thing for 27, 28. So party. I don't know the MSTR story well enough to actually comment on it. There might be an absolute disaster happening here. One thing that I did notice, which kind of left me scratching my head, is he did report earnings recently and actually showed substantial increase in earnings. But I can't quite figure out, other than issuing more stock and issuing bonds and debentures and shit like that, how does this guy actually make money? I don't get it. And is it just a question of it's a Ponzi and he just keeps shilling shares and hoping that the price keeps going up? And, maybe Bitcoin actually has to go sideways for the next year or two. And all of his people that bought the stock and the debentures and shit that he did, turns out they don't perform. And they actually turn around and end up suing him. Because I can't quite figure out how this company actually makes money. So that's, I think the reason why the stock's hanging in there where it is because they are reporting earnings and they're relatively robust. But I can't for the life of me figure out how this guy actually makes money. So that's my comment there. Okay, folks, gave you a couple hours. So I had no idea how the hell I was going to talk to you guys for 2 hours, but hope you got some value out of all that. I do see that the participation here, not as much. But hey, great to see we have sort of our regulars over there on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed that. Also, too, I looked at a name or two that you got posted there in the chat. So I think we'll probably leave it at that for today. Thank you very much for the best wishes for Liam and I on the road this afternoon. Off to my real job now. Slow and steady wins a race. PMA for the win. Thank you very much for the kind words. Maybe go check out that Wall Street Silver. They used to be called Wall Street Silver. I don't know what the hell they're called now. Wall Street Bullion. Anyway, check out that video if you want maybe a little bit more content for your Sunday. I tweeted this out and I don't know whether I posted in a lounge or not, but anyway, an interesting dovetail to everything that I talked to you all about here today. All right, let's leave it at that. And let me know whether I sound sing-songy. Some guy says I sound sing-songy. I don't know what the hell that means, but I've got paper thin skin, so I didn't take that well. But anyway. All right. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins a race. Try to remember what your number one job as a trader is. Don't don't cough. All the best. I think the only thing left to say to good people is already bye for now.